All right, guys, we're going to review the All-22 from Week 18. We're going to break down the good and bad from Desmond Ridder against the Bucs, and we're going to break down why I'm ready to commit to Desmond Ridder in 2023, and we might also give you the blueprint and formula for how the Falcons can build a winning team around him.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So you guys know me, I'm Aaron Freeman, aka Mr. Drew, aka Sirius Black, and aka your very humble host here of your illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Falcons is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. And first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code Locked On. Hey guys, we thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day. It's free and available Monday through Friday on a variety of podcast platforms, including on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube, and you'll get the video version of the podcast the night before the audio drops. And make sure you find Locked On Falcons as part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on your Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Just download the Locked On Sports Atlanta app, and you can check out Locked On Falcons, Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Braves, Locked On Hawks, and so much more on your Roku and Amazon Fire TV. So guys, this episode is an all-22 review, but later in the episode, we're going to talk about the good of Desmond Ridder in this Week 18 matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, talking about his ability to create off structure. But we're going to start out today's episode talking about the bad. We'll get to the good later. And then by the end of the episode, I think I will have hopefully successfully outlined a path for the Falcons to build a potential Super Bowl caliber team around such a quarterback like Desmond Ridder. So I would appreciate if you stick around to the end to check that out. But let's start off talking a little bit about the bad with Desmond Ridder. And he had an up and down first half against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. And the reason I want to start out here is because one of the criticisms you're going to hear about Desmond Ridder and why the Falcons shouldn't be willing to commit to Desmond Ridder, as I am going to spell out for you later in today's episode, is because going up against the Bucs starters in the first half, he struggled. And in the second half, he only started to get better because he was going up against the backups. And it's true. Like, we did not face the A tier or S tier, if you're anime fans, version of this Bucs defense. Vita Vea sat out this game. Carlton Davis sat out this game. Obviously, Shaq Barrett got hurt earlier in the year. But the Bucs, it wasn't like it was all backups in the second half, right? They did pull a couple of starters around halftime. Levante David, Devin White, Keanu Neal, Akeem Hicks. They did get pulled midway through the game. Jamel Dean started this game but got pulled early. He was questionable with a hamstring injury, and then I think Drake London cooked him on that 40-yard play that should have been a DPI. We'll talk more about that play later in the episode. But I think he got pulled like right after that, and they're like, oh yeah, this hamstring's a problem. But other starters like Antoine Winfield, Joe Tryon, Sean Murphy Bunting, they did play the entire game. Other guys that started this game that maybe you wouldn't categorize as true starters, but they're like key backups, like William Golston and Rakeem Nunez Roches and Anthony Nelson, played the entire game. Yeah, there were a couple of special teams guys that did get their most extended reps in this game at linebacker and defensive back, but that's not because they're scrubs or anything like that. It's just they hadn't played this season, because why would the Bucs take Levante David and Devin White off the field to put their backups in at any point unless they had to? So that kind of explains that. And so I think when people just look at the box score and sort of come to this conclusion, oh, he only succeeded against the backups, and then against the starters, he was 4 for 9 for 25 yards in the first half. That's, he was bad. Like, that's not fair. You got to watch the film, right? And while it was up and down, we'll talk about, again, some of the bad plays more before we get to the good plays. There were some bad plays in the first half, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you he was, lights out or anything against the Bucs starters. But it wasn't a major issue where he was overmatched. All right, like, he missed a couple of throws. Right, there were 2 bad throws that he just outright missed. Right, it was the opening snap of the fourth series in the second quarter. There was a wide open Michael Pruitt along the sideline. He just missed the throw. Got to hit that, right? And then the next series, he fumbled it. You got to hold on to the football, right? And the Bucs got points off of that. And then there was two other plays that I think, I'd be critical of Desmond Ridder on these plays, but I wouldn't necessarily say they were bad plays, right? Like there were a 3rd and 10 on that same series that he missed the Pruitt throw. He scrambled on that play, and I think had he kept his eyes downfield rather than just looking to run, he would have seen an open Damiere Byrd over the middle. And those of you that were listening to some of those later season episodes with my criticism of Marcus Mariota, there were a couple of games where I thought he was a little too quick to scramble, and on that particular play, I saw something similar from Desmond Ridder. And then on the final series in the first half, there was a 3rd and 5, and this was another scramble that Ridder had. And I feel like he kind of gave up on the play to run a beat too early because Zacchaeus kind of came open on a slant like right in front of him, but he was too busy kind of scrambling on that play. And again, that's similar to Marcus Mariota, but it more reminded me of Matt Ryan in the idea that because he was hit early in this game, it kind of sped up his clock. That was kind of a running theme with Matt Ryan, where if you were able to get pressure on him early, it would cause him to play a little fast. And I was wondering maybe that was an issue for Ridder in this game, that particularly on the opening drive, his first 2 dropbacks, he got hit, right? He missed his first throw because he got hit. Then his next dropback, he got sacked. Both of them, I think, were on blown blocks from Caleb McGarry. Not a great day for Caleb McGarry. We'll probably talk about a couple of times where he gave up some pressure later in this episode. But like part of me wonders, like, was that similar to Matt Ryan? And the reason why he got better in the second half wasn't just simply because he was going up against backups, but because he kind of settled down and he wasn't playing as fast as he was early in this game. So we don't have a large enough sample size to really come to a conclusion. That wasn't an issue exclusive to Matt Ryan. That's an issue for most quarterbacks. Like Ben Roethlisberger and Cam Newton are like the only guys that I can think of that actually get better the more you hit them early in games. But that's something that we may have to pay attention to in the future with more reps with Ridder, where, are there games where if you hit him early, it'll lead to him speeding up his clock and maybe he settles down. But that's been a through line throughout, his first 4 starts, where he kind of starts a little slow and then gets settled in the second half. And that's going to be, again, a thing that we're going to have to work on next season if Desmond Ridder is a starter, to get him settled earlier than possible. And hopefully that's something that as he gets more comfortable in the offense, that will be something that we'll be able to build towards. But we'll leave the bad aside and talk more about the good, focusing on Desmond Ridder's ability to create off structure that he showed in this game. And that's going to allow us to get into a conversation of why I'm willing to make that commitment to Desmond Ridder for this upcoming season as the Falcons starter. But before we get there, guys, I want to tell you about TurboTax. Why don't you go to TurboTax and not do your taxes, right? You can meet with an expert that will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so that you can do not taxes. Show your eyes not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste not taxes. Sing not taxes a lullaby. Hope not taxes sleeps through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so that you can relax. It feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax, full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. And I want to tell you about today's sponsor, the mobile game Ultimate Football GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise, controlling every strategic aspect of your team, your dreams have now come true. And this is the game definitely for you. You're hiring the coaches, you're firing the coaches, you're trading players, drafting players, signing free agents. The challenges are great and the realism is great, right? It's going to be very challenging. I'm sure some of you guys can attest to it. I can certainly attest that it's a little bit more challenging than you probably assume a mobile game will be, but you can finally prove to yourself and your friends that you're the right person to guide your favorite team, the Atlanta Falcons, into the future. So get 100% free boost to your franchise, probably the Falcons, with the promo code Locked On, all caps, LOCKEDON, in the game store. That's promo code Locked On. And all you got to do to download the game is visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. And guys, I want to thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen. And why not for your second listen? Check out Locked On NFL and get the daily conversations for the biggest NFL stories. Subscribe to Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So, guys, there were several good plays in this game where Desmond Ridder was able to create off structure, able to extend plays and helped extend drives in this game. And this is going to get us to a conversation where I'm going to tell you why I'm ready to commit to Desmond Ridder in 2023. But there were 2 third downs and then the 4th down conversion that he had in this game that to me were particularly impressive, right? The 2 third downs came on the touchdown drive in the first quarter. So again, it wasn't all second half stuff with Desmond Ridder. And the first one was a 3rd and 5 where I think there was an opportunity for him to hit an inbreaker to Olamide Zaccheaus, but he felt some backside pressure. Again, I think it was Joe Tryon versus Caleb McGarry, and then sort of stepped up, escaped the pocket, hit Drake London over the middle, got a 26-yard gain, an explosive play, by the way. And then later on that drive on the 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line, the cap off the drive ultimately ended in the Michael Pruitt touchdown. The Falcons lined up in 23 personnel, which means 2 running backs and 3 tight ends. Ryan Nuzul was the 3rd tight end, and he lined up as an eligible receiver on this play. And the Falcons ran like a play action play, but it was like a tight end leak mesh concept. I don't know what it was, but basically they had Pruitt on the left side and Nuzul on the right side. My right, my left. I know it's probably flipped on your screens, but they ran like a mesh concept where they both ran like crossing routes and crossing in front of each other. And both of those guys were covered. And then, Keith Smith went in motion as the fullback and then ran out into the flat, but the turf monster got in because he tripped. And so basically the 3 main receivers on this play, none of them got open. Nuzul was covered, Pruitt was covered, and Keith Smith got gobbled up by the turf monster. And they did have a 4th receiver on this play. But because the 3 initial receivers didn't come open, I think Ridder was like, okay, I got to get out of here. I got to bail on this play. And there was also kind of pressure in his face. But I think Tyler Algier did a good job holding Pat O'Connor, this 280-pound defensive lineman, to give Ridder time. So it was good protection. But that sort of pressure, I think, kind of forced Ridder to basically, okay, I got to get out of here. But the 4th receiver did come open on this play, and it was Parker Hesse. This is where the leak concept comes in, where he kind of holds his block for a second and then releases back to where Nuzul was running towards the left, and he's wide open. But by this time, Ridder's basically bailing to his right, and Pruitt keeps working over the middle, and Ridder, by the time, waits the last second, sucks up a defender and hits Pruitt in the end zone for a touchdown. So he was able to get that touchdown thanks to his mobility, but there was a possibility that had he not been flushed early, and maybe Keith Smith doesn't trip, maybe he stays in the pocket and hits Hesse over the middle. And then the last play was a 4th down conversion in the 3rd quarter on their 2nd touchdown drive. So they convert that and then eventually go down the field and score on the Zaccheaus touchdown. And they're basically running like 2 flat routes to convert on this 4th and short. And on the first flat route is to the left, it's Anthony Ferkser. And then the second one is Tyler Algier to the right. And so Ridder opens up to the left to look to Ferkser. He's covered. Then he goes all the way back to the right to look to Algier. Now Algier is open. But I think, again, there's pressure in his face. Again, I think it's Joe Tryon versus Caleb McGarry. And that causes Ridder to kind of turn his back and run backwards. And he kind of rolls to the left, and then eventually is able to just extend the play to the outside. And Ferkser comes open in part due to the defender. Once Ridder extends the play, it sucks up the defender, and that leads Ferkser to come open, and he hits him. They convert, and then they go down the field and score. So, to me, these are the types of plays that you need to see from a young quarterback that showcases mobility. And this is, to me, the types of plays that show the value of mobility. Like, one of the biggest misconceptions that I see from your average fan is they think mobility means scrambling or running quarterbacks. And mobility is just basically buying that time off structure, right? Now, a veteran quarterback like a Matt Ryan, because he's played, dozens of games, hundreds of games, gone through hundreds, if not thousands of these reps, he may sit there and trust in the development of the structure of the play that he may wait that beat to hit that end breaker to Alama Zacchaeus, to wait and hold it for Parker Hesse to come open on that leak concept, or to hit, Algier with pressure in his face because he knows that play is going to come open, because he has the anticipation, because he's seen this stuff hundreds of times now at the point in his career. But a young player like Desmond Ridder doesn't have those reps, right? And to him, all of this is stuff that he may be seeing for the first time. It's all chaos to him. And so he has to have that mobility. Again, not just simply running and scrambling around, but being able to buy those second chance opportunities. That's what we call them. We call them off structure. We call them second reaction plays. Off structure means the structure of the play called for one thing, and you break off that structure and extend the play and buy yourself more times to find those throws, like he did to Ferkser. Or the second reaction play, where the first reaction is to throw the progression reads or whatever, but then you do that improvisation to buy yourself extra time. And this is why you're going to hear in this pre-draft process, and you've heard for the last couple of years, the value of mobility. This is why, people were down on Mac Jones, down on Carson Strong in recent drafts. This is going to be the bulk of the conversation surrounding CJ Stroud in this pre-draft process, because before that Georgia game in the playoffs, he didn't really show this ability to win off structure and to make those second reaction plays, right? This is why, going back to a conversation we had last summer, why people think Josh Rosen failed, right? Because he didn't have the reps to do the mental stuff, and he didn't have that second reaction ability, and that's why he struggled in the NFL. This is a big reason why Jared Goff, struggled early in his career, right? He had a historically bad rookie season under Jeff Fisher, and then Sean McVay comes in and basically provides all the structure that he needs to thrive. And interesting enough, with Jared Goff, he's a player that we talked about with Josh Rosen last summer about successful reclamation projects, the Rich Gannons, the Ryan Tannehills, the guys that have started 50, 60 games, 80 plus games in the NFL. Jared Goff I think this week 18 game was his 180 regular season start, right? And so now he has the reps to be a successful reclamation project for the Lions. And it's interesting because Dan Campbell, in his post-season presser, basically gave Jared Goff a vote of confidence. And that's notable, due to this reclamation project thing, that now Jared Goff has had the thousands of reps that he can now do this stuff and be a pretty good quarterback as he was this year. Now, granted, some of that may be Ben Johnson stuff. Again, Locked On Lions is probably a better place to really break that stuff down. But it's interesting to at least the Falcons, relatively speaking, because the Lions are picking 6 in the draft, and if they're willing to go all in on Jared Goff, does that mean they pass on a quarterback? So that's going to affect the Falcons draft situation. But I bring all this up because, mobility matters. And we'll get back to Ridder in a second. But this is why, I hear a lot of fans get confused when people call players like Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow mobile quarterbacks. And they're not mobile. They're not out there running. It's it's not about running, guys. It's about those opportunities, those second off structure reaction plays, right? And some of it's a little bit more subtle. Again, Joe Burrow is not out here doing all crazy stuff running the football, but it's subtle things, extending the play, finding that room to extend plays outside of the pocket, all those various things to get more time and find that success. And to me, with Desmond Ridder, he has that ability, right? He has that mobile ability that a young quarterback needs to survive. That's what it's about. It's not about thriving. It's about surviving the early chaos of playing in the National Football League. And he has that. Plus, I think he has the mental makeup, right? But when it comes to that mobility, to me, that was a big question mark for me with Desmond. When I watched his Cincinnati film, I was like, yeah, he's a good athlete. So when he does decide to run, he can do some stuff. But on the spectrum, if you have a pure, quote unquote, pure pocket quarterback like Matt Ryan, right, on one end of the spectrum, and you have a more of a runner like Marcus Mariota on the other end of the spectrum, Ridder's somewhere in the middle, but I think he's kind of closer to Matt Ryan than he is Marcus Mariota, even though he's more athletically comparable to Marcus Mariota. But that's what I thought watching the Cincinnati film. But now that we've seen him in the preseason, where he showed more of that ability, now that we've seen him in the regular season where he's shown more of that ability, including this Buccaneers game, I'm willing to basically say, okay, he does have the mobility that's, that he needs to be able to survive in this league. And so you throw out the Cincinnati stuff. That's another beef I have with the people that are, maybe anti-Ridder or not sold on Ridder, is that I think they're still married to their evaluations of guys from college from 6 months ago. It's once you see the film in the NFL, guys, like throw out the college stuff, right? That's what we were talking about last summer with Josh Rosen. Like you might have I had Josh Rosen QB1 in that 2018 draft, but once he gets to the NFL, you're not projecting anymore what he is in the NFL. Like you know what he looks like against NFL players. The draft stuff is guessing at what he's going to be in the NFL. You don't need to guess anymore. You can see it with your eyes by watching the film. So like that's why I'm a lot more willing to get committed, right? I'm willing to get engaged with Desmond Ridder because he not only has the mobile stuff, but he also has the mental stuff, right? There was a play at the end of the first half where he went a full field progression, 1, 2, 3 across the field. It wound up resulting in a check down to Damiere Byrd for 0 yards. But the fact that he's able to do the mental stuff that you need. So he has the mobile stuff. He has the mental makeup. That to me is a great combination. That he's much more advanced as a young quarterback than most of these guys that are just out here like, I'm just making it up as I go. I can do the full field progressions. I can get from 1 to 2. I can read the progressions. Again, it's not perfect as we broke down a couple of plays, but a lot of that to me is just like the chaos of speeding up to stuff. But like to me, I'm ready to commit to Desmond Ridder, right? That's basically what I'm saying. I'm saying, let's give him a chance. Let's make him the starter in 2023, and let's see what he can cook. Let's build this thing around him, and we'll get to the end of next season. We'll give him a full season in 2023 and see where we're at. Now, maybe we'll decide to make a change there, right? Or maybe we'll continue to be like, we saw enough growth to continue down this path. I'm willing to do that. If I'm the Falcons decision maker, if I know Arthur Smith is listening because he makes Locked On Falcons his first listen, just like the rest of you, Arthur, go ahead and be willing to get engaged. You just get engaged. You don't have to get married. You don't have to get married to Desmond Ridder. Just get engaged, line up a date, in the distant future and say, we'll get married then. We'll just get engaged. We'll share off the bling, right? And we'll get engaged. We'll show everybody that we're hooked, right? And then we'll make a decision later, right? It's like getting engaged before the pandemic, and then like we'll get married after the pandemic when the stuff, and then maybe during the pandemic you break up. Who cares? Stuff like that happens. Now, whether the Falcons are willing to make that full commitment that I'm willing to make, I don't know if they are. Based off of their history, the answer is probably not. Right? They weren't fully committed to Matt Ryan. They weren't fully committed to Desmond Ridder. I don't think they're fully committed to they weren't fully committed to Marcus Mariota, and I don't think they'll be fully committed to Desmond Ridder. They might be partially committed to him, but we'll see. Right. And so over the next couple of months, we'll talk about alternative options because they're not going to be probably fully committed to anybody until they find their Patrick Mahomes or their Joe Burrow. So time will tell on that, and we'll break down those. And I'll try to be as unbiased as possible. I will not lie to you, though, if when it comes to Lamar Jackson as an option, I think that's a terrible plan. We'll probably talk more extensively on why that's a terrible plan, but we'll do my best to try to be unbiased, particularly when we look at the draft class to see, like, are these guys it? So we'll get into all of that over the coming months, so you can stay tuned, continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. I know Arthur Smith, he will continue to make us his first listen as well, but we'll wrap up today's episode, guys, by talking about, 2023, and potentially, if that's Desmond Ridder or somebody else, being able to get those explosive plays is going to be pivotal to this offense improving in 2023. And that's going to lead us to answering a listener question about Desmond Ridder's deep ball accuracy. And that's going to lead us to a conversation about how the Falcons, trying to solve that problem potentially could lead the Falcons to building a team that may be like Super Bowl caliber, right? Building the successful team around them. So we'll get into that, guys, as we continue today's episode. But first, I want to tell you about Prize Picks, a fun and new way to play daily fantasy. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. It takes less than a minute to enter, and the great thing about Prize Picks is you're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections, and they're offering projections on the NFL, the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, so much more, college basketball, so much more. Of course, you want to check them out for the playoff action in the NFL, and of course, college basketball is heating up with the in-conference play. So check out Prize Picks. It's safe, it's fast, it's easy. It's currently in operation in over 30 states in the US and Canada. All you got to do is download the app or go to prizepicks.com, and you can sign up and get a first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That means if you deposit $100, they'll give you $100 to play with. Prize Picks will also give you $50 if you deposit $50. So don't forget to use that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Now, lastly, guys, I want to ask you, can your portable Bluetooth speaker hang with the Big Dog? Big Dog is giving you a portable Bluetooth speaker specifically designed in Augusta, Georgia. And I know you guys love to rep the state of Georgia now that the Georgia Bulldogs are back-to-back national champions. And of course, you want to celebrate by playing Drake's back-to-back on your portable Bluetooth speaker, the Big Dog Scout, that gives you huge, clear sound, extraordinary battery life, and tons of connectivity options at a great price. Again, rocking that Drake back-to-back on there. And the great thing about, Big Dog speakers is it's backed by 100% satisfaction guarantee plus a 1-year warranty. So go big with the Big Dog Scout, their inaugural model that includes a max volume of 105 decibels, 40 watts. It's waterproof. It charges other devices. You get 15 hours of playback, and you can pair two of them for that enhanced stereo sound where you can have, back to back going in both ears, baby. Right. So get the Big Dog Scout available online at bigdogspeakers.com for $99. But guys, you're going to get $20 off with the promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON. Right. So get more information, just visit bigdogspeakers.com. So, guys, we're going to outline the Falcons. We'll probably wrap up talking a little bit more about the sort of the blueprint, the formula for how the Falcons can build a team, Super Bowl caliber team, comparable to the Kansas City Chiefs, by answering a listener question, right? And we'll get there, right? It comes from Trips in the Discord. He says, watching the game, there seemed to be several throws by Ridder that were underthrown, that the wide receiver had a step or two on the defensive back. I love Matt Ryan, but that reminded me of several times that our wide receivers beat the defensive back for a touchdown, but the pass was underthrown. It ended up either a PI or an incomplete pass. Am I over-exaggerating, or does Ridder not have the strength for the deep ball? I want Ridder to be our franchise quarterback, but that worries me if he can't hit London or Pitts in stride. So first, I will say, to me, watching Matt Ryan over the last 15 or so years, it was not underthrowing receivers, it was overthrowing receivers. And I remember Matt Ryan saying this publicly early in his career, that basically in college, he learned the notion of if you're long, you're never wrong. And it's basically like if you overthrow the receiver, that's better because underthrowing the guy does open up the opportunity for the defensive back to make a play on it and pick it off. So if you're going to err, put too much err, ERR, on the side of caution, put too much air, AIR, on the football. And so I don't think that's quite the same issue that Ridder had in this game, where he did underthrow a couple of throws. Now, he did throw 5 20-plus yard passes in this game. He hit 2 of them. He hit the 40-yarder to Drake London in the fourth quarter. That ball was slightly underthrown. Drake London didn't have to slow up to catch that football. But since he caught it, I'm not going to complain too much about it. And you can make the argument that, when you have big receivers like London and Pruitt, and this, was a knock on Matt Ryan when he was overthrowing guys, when he had Julio, that, those guys can win those contested catch situations. So underthrowing it is not as bad an outcome. But again, you are opening the door for the defensive back to win that contested catch situation and pick it off or break up the throw. The other throw that Ridder hit in this game was a seam ball to Michael Pruitt, which was on the money. It was a 29-yard throw. He did miss 3 other ones. He overthrew Josh Ali on a go ball on the next series in the fourth quarter after he hit the 40-yarder to London. Then he underthrew London on a go ball in the first quarter that should have been a DPI, but they didn't call it, where London cooked Jamel Dean. That led to him getting pulled. And then he overthrew a deep corner route to Zacchaeus in the first quarter as well. So the thing with Ridder is the 2 that he hit in this game were the only 2 deep balls that he's hit in his 4 starts, right? He's attempted 10 20-plus yard passes. Those were the first 2 that he hit. And so I do think the lack of deep touch is a concern. That was something that I noted at Cincinnati on his film, and that has been something that he hasn't quite hit yet in the NFL. And so we'll sort of see if he can improve upon that. But, hitting those deep balls is less of an arm strength issue. It's a touch issue, right? You don't need a big arm to put an arc on the ball. It's just you got to – it's a touch issue, right? And so I think that's a legit question mark for Desmond Ridder, right? And it's going to be a question over whether or not the deep ball is going to be a legitimate part, a major part of the Falcons' arsenal moving forward. But I'm personally going to reserve judgment on Ridder until he gets Kyle Pitts back, who was the team's primary deep ball receiver early in the season. Of course, Marcus Mariota was consistently overthrowing Pitts in those situations. So we didn't see Pitts really succeed in that. And so we'll see if Pitts and Ridder can get on a better page next year. And I would like to see the Falcons add another vertical speed threat to their offense opposite Pitts in London, right? I think Olamide Zaccheaus and Damiere Byrd have done an admirable job. They're fast guys, but I don't think they're true deep ball specialists, right? I want a true deep ball specialist like a Will Fuller, a Deshaun Jackson, a Tyreek Hill, right? I know Jalen Hyatt, the Tennessee wide receiver, is probably the guy that would qualify as the top option in the draft. Not suggesting that the Falcons definitely take him or something like that, but that type of player. When you have a true burner, and again, Zaccheaus and Bird are fast guys, but like you guys know what real speed looks like, right? I want that guy, the guy that's gonna make defenses afraid. They're gonna dictate. It's gonna dictate certain coverages. It's gonna be the guy that when the defensive back goes to the sideline, and defense coordinator's looking like, what's going on? Like, coach, I can't. He's too fast. I can't cover him. It's impossible, right? Will Fuller is a great example of this because I remember back in that 2019 game ahead, going into that season and going into that game against the Texans, like, DeAndre Hopkins is incredible. He's great, Hall of Famer, all that stuff. Like no shade meant at DeAndre Hopkins, but the guy that scared me in that matchup was Will Fuller because like there's nothing you can do. He's just going to run past you. Right. And when you saw a healthy Will Fuller, that's been the big knock on Will Fuller. He's been hurt all throughout his career, but when he's been healthy, when he was with the Texans, like that was a different offense. That's when they were a true contender at that point in time. And I want that type of player opposite him. And I want the guy that, can take, even, whether it's the deep stuff or the short stuff, just take the short stuff and turn those into big plays. Like that was a knock I had on Arthur Smith last year because he was using Calvin Ridley as that sort of guy that was running those shallow drags. And, you catch the 2-yard throw and then he turns upfield and he's supposed to turn into a 25-yard gain. And Ridley did that a couple of times. And Ridley's not a slow guy. No one would sit here and say Ridley's slow, but like, that's not really what he specialized in, which, is a whole separate conversation of Arthur Smith's misusing Calvin Ridley. But give me a guy that can specialize in that, right? Give me a guy that does have the speed that like, oh, that's exactly what you want to do, right? And again, not saying that this should be the biggest priority to the Falcons. They certainly have bigger fish to fry elsewhere on their roster, but that is something that I think this team needs to be on the lookout for and needs to be working towards. Again, 4th round, 3rd round, mid-level free agent, whatever it takes. Give me guys that bring that element to this offense. And if we get that guy, that can take the top off the defense and Riddler's still missing deep, then I'll start to be more concerned about, did I say Riddler? You can't say Ridder and Ridley in the same paragraph without saying Riddler. Ridder is still missing those throws, then I will be concerned about his deep ball touch a lot more. But I'm willing to give Ridder that opportunity to fail is basically what I'm sitting here saying. And so if he can't hit the deep ball, then guess what? Then we'll just go back to the tried and trues in Arthur Smith's offense, running those digs and those crossers that we saw Arthur Smith, covet with that speed guy. With A.J. Brown, that's basically what their go-to big plays were in Tennessee, was to basically hand the ball off to Derrick Henry and let him do Derrick Henry things, turn a 5-yard run to a 40-yard run, or take a 15-yard cross at A.J. Brown, with his size, his speed, he'd break a tackle and turn it into a 40-yard gain, right? And so, like, give me a guy that can do that can run those digs and turn it, a 15-yard play into a 40-yard gain. And so you don't have to go deep. You just have to hit the 15-yard throw. And Ridder can do that. We've seen him hit those dig routes. And so, that to me is kind of how you do it. Give me the guy that has the speed to either take the top off the defense or can turn those simple throws, those shorter throws into big gains. I want the big play threat. And I think if you do that, it's going to make this offense, and then if Ridder can hit those deep ball throws and you have the guy that can turn the short stuff, it basically makes this offense impossible to defend, right? Where it's like teams, we know teams are going to stack the box to try to run the football against us. So they bring that extra safety. So guess what? You just hit him. You go over the top with the speed guy and Ridder hits those, right? Or they back off, with the safety and they play too deep because we got to protect against the deep ball. Well, guess what? We can go intermediate underneath and still burn you with the speed, or we're just going to pound the ball down your throat with our running game, right? And so now all of a sudden you've built an offense that's nearly impossible to defend. This is kind of the Chiefs formula. Obviously, they don't have quite the running game, but that's basically what they were doing in Kansas City with all the speed they had at the position. Obviously Patrick Mahomes, enhances all those things, having him there, but it was basically, it forced defenses to play you a certain style. Right. And the formula for playing the Chiefs, generally speaking, over the years has been, we're going to play man coverage and give those guys safety help, right, to deal with the speed, or we're going to play too high shells, right? And then that forces, that dictates how defenses play you. And so once offenses know, oh, they're going to play us this way, now we can attack it, right? Now we can exploit it because, when they zig, we zag, right? This is exactly the formula that the Falcons had in 2016, guys, when they went to the Super Bowl. Right, with Kyle Shanahan, right? Well, Kyle Shanahan, and he was doing this in 2015, but they were able to take it to a different level in 2016 because he now had all the different chess pieces that he needed with Coleman and Gabriel and Sanu and Julio and Freeman to do all the things, and Hooper to do all the things that he wanted to do with all this chess pieces. But it was basically like teams would basically say, we can't play cover one, man coverage against the Falcons, because that's just basically asking for a 60-yard touchdown to Julio Jones. When the Falcons saw man coverage, we're going deep. It's Matt Ryan calling the shot. He's pointing to the fence. Julio, go deep. And they, you're just asking for a big play. So teams didn't play man coverage against us. So they would basically play cover 2 or cover 3, right? And so Kyle Shanahan would call plays early in the game to figure out which one you're doing. Okay, you're playing cover 2? Okay, I'm going to dial up these cover 2 beaters, and we're going to get big plays off of that, right? You're playing cover 3? I'm going to dial up these cover 3 beaters, and we're going to get big plays off of that. That was the formula. He was doing that from day one here in Atlanta. And obviously it worked beautifully in 2016. And that to me is the formula that you want to see here built here in Atlanta around Desmond Ridder with Arthur Smith. It's like, okay, we have a personnel that forces you to play us certain ways, right? And we're going to exploit it. If if you stack the box, we're going to go over the top. If you lighten the box, we're going to pound it down your throat. All that and more. So that's what I want to see. That to me is the formula for success for the Falcons. It's the same formula for success with the Chiefs, right? Obviously through the passing game, obviously Patrick Mahomes is on a different level, right? Is great to executing that, running around, doing his mobile stuff, finding Travis Kelce over the middle, hitting Tyreek Hill, hitting all their weapons, all that sort of stuff. But, the formula for beating the Chiefs was basically, well, we just got to get pressure, right? And we saw that work against them in the Super Bowl where they lost to Tampa Bay. So what do? They fixed the offensive line, right? And now the formula, right, now that they have a great offensive line, now the formula is basically, okay, well, we can't stop their offense, so now we have to outscore them, right? And guess what they're going to do this offseason? They're going to fix their defense. I'm going to sit here and tell you, and they're always going to be one step ahead. That's what you want to be. You want to be that team. You want to be that team that's always basically like, we're always pushing it. So you're chasing us, right? So that's what I think the Falcons have the potential to do. Obviously, I don't think Ridder's going to be on Patrick Mahomes' level, so they probably will not be as efficient and as effective and as impossible to defend, where the defender's like, what, coach, what do you want me to do? Like, we had it perfectly covered, and then Patrick Mahomes did his thing where, he does this behind the back, flipping, all that stuff that we've all seen Patrick Mahomes do. Like, we're not going to see that quite from Ridder, but we can get, a poor man's version of that, I think, with Desmond Ridder. And that's the formula for success. Obviously, getting that speed threat, continuing to shore up the offensive line, and of course, rebuilding the defense. I feel like this is a formula where the Falcons can really build a successful team. Again, whether that's going to lead to them winning Super Bowls or anything like that, time will tell on that. But that to me is the formula. It's going to take a couple of years. That's not something that they're going to be able to snap their fingers and get next year. But that's something that I think they can build towards 2024, 2025, 2026. All of a sudden, we might be that team to beat. But, all of that goes out the window if you trade all those assets that you need to add those pieces, to get Lamar Jackson. But that's a conversation for another day. So that's it, guys. That's the All-22 review. That to me is my selling point for why we should be, engaged to Desmond Ridder. Tomorrow we'll talk probably a little bit about Rich McKay and his comments earlier this week, and whether there's pressure on this regime to win, which may force them to go towards a Lamar Jackson to make a big upgrade at the quarterback position. Although I don't think there is that type of pressure, so that's part of the reason why I think we can be patient and let's see how let's cook with Desmond Ridder for at least a year. And then later in the week, the Falcons did sign a CFL corner in Jamal Peters, and we'll have a guest on that covered Jamal Peters in the Canadian Football League. And we'll talk, I guess, about whether or not he can be the new D. Alford, the next D. Alford. So that will be something later in the week. So, guys, Continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. Make your second listen Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On NFL. Of course, really appreciate it, guys. Find them all on the same podcast platforms you currently are listening to or watching. Locked On Falcons, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.